I'm embarking on a new series today. It'll be 4 Sundays, so this Sunday and 3 more, just entitled Kingdom Manifesto. Kingdom Manifesto. I don't know what manifesto words thrown around so weird anymore, but simply it's a radical idea because I mean Jesus was a radical person. He still is radical. How many know that? The word says he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. When's he ever changed? And he's not. How many hear me? Right? And he was radical then, he's radical today, and he'll do radical things in your life. And by the way, we should be radical in our pursuit of him in this world. The other day, some of you, I won't get into all my story. I don't want to bore you with details, but I've been on this healing, recovery journey, and I'm feeling so good, and God's helping me, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful. I know I didn't get the sentence they said. They gave me a death sentence. I'm here coming on 4 months later, right? This is my new life. But I'll tell you, I'm on a few medications, and I've never been a medication person. By that, I mean I've just been healthy until recently, and I'm on several medications, and it's just been tough navigating for me, this, because number one, I got to think about what do I have to take. It's a crazy kind of thing. And then I've got to try to space these out, but no matter what I do, I still get this crazy nausea thing. And it's not fun every day to some level, and some days worse than others. And the other day, so here's my story. So I'm down at Methodist Hospital. I'm doing cardio rehab. And by the way, I did 36 minutes on treadmill. I know somebody said that's not that long. I'll tell you, for me it was 30. And then they had the resistance bands, and I've been doing dumbbells too. They get me over and do a little training. And bad thing is, they gave me 3-pound ones. And the 81-year-old lady next to me's got 10-pound ones. You know, make you feel very good. But man, they're heavy when you've been 23 days in the hospital. Your muscles aren't doing what they used to do. So I'm getting stronger and stuff. But we left there. Kim's with me, and she's been driving because she don't want me to stress out driving myself. I love my wife. And so, anyways, she's driving, and I told her, because I hadn't had really anything to eat, because I just couldn't really stomach it and stuff that day. And I told her, I said, hey, there's Amelia's Bakery over in Fountain Square. I don't know if you've ever been to it, but it's like just a little bitty corner place. They got a grocery store in there and a little display case with the stuff they make. And there's a cookie there that I get sometimes. It's a seeded cookie. Sounds probably gross to you. It's got maple syrup sweetener, so it's 100% maple syrup, which is different than sugar. And so I get that. And I walk in there, and I'm looking at it, and then I'm getting her cocoa brownie that she likes. And then I look over, and there's this pastry. And it's not healthy looking. It's not one I should have. But some days, if I can just eat something, I eat something. You know, and so it's one of those days. And by the way, just so you know, I can walk in Long's Donut and get you a dozen donuts and not eat one. I mean, I've got some self-discipline. But I see that, and I think, man, that looks good. And it said berry Danish. Yeah. And I don't ever eat Danishes, ever. But I thought, I need to get that. And so, and somebody can have this. It's a day old, but they can have it after this is over. After I describe it, you're going to get the picture. So we get in the car, and open the bag, and I pull it out. And I bite into it. And I'm telling you, it's like snow starts falling, all the buildings got Christmas lights, and Bing Crosby singing, I'm dreaming of a wife. I told Kim, I bit into it, and the first thing I said, I didn't think about this. I had not processed this. I said, this tastes just like Christmas. I don't know what kind of berries it is. I don't know what the cheese is. I just know, wow, it was so good. Now, here's what my takeaway is. That experience right there, that Danish in my mouth, the response that I had was because of some baker, some creative person who used the right ingredients, who used the skill to make the flakiness of the crust and pick the specific cheese that would be on there and the berries that would be on there, and however that's mixed together. I don't even know how you do it. But that represented Amelia's bakery very well. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I bit into it and it was horrible, I would think, I don't want to ever go there, or I don't want to ever get this again. But in that moment, I said, oh, it's so good. And it came from there. And I would just say this. As we kind of work through these next three today and these next 3 Sundays, I hope we can get this. Because Jesus' prayer was that his will be done on earth as it is in heaven. On earth like heaven. A picture of heaven ought to be reproduced in every one of us. That when people encounter us, their response is, oh, that's so good. They're so different. See, because we live in a world, in a Christian world, where it seems like so many people say that they're under the banner of Christ, but they live just like the world. They act like the world, talk like the world, have a resemblance to the world. In fact, sometimes I can't tell a difference between the people that are following Jesus and the people that are not following Jesus. You hear what I'm saying? And this isn't an indictment, and it's not condemnation. It's just the true state of affairs in the church today. We need to be different than the world. And if we're not, what are we doing? You say, Pastor, you're saying we got to be good at 2 shoes, perfect people? Not at all. I don't even fit that description. In fact, I did a series a few years ago, said no perfect people allowed at Elevation Church. Because if you're perfect, you probably ain't going to stay here very long. Hear what I'm saying? But I'm just telling you this. There ought to be a distinction, a line of demarcation that says this is what a Jesus follower looks like. Not that I'm particular, not that people see denomination. Some people, I can pick them out. Well, that person's this kind of flavor of Christianity, and they're that denomination. By what they say, by the way they look. No, I'm talking about that. I'm not talking about you go to ABC Church and we know who you are. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about I'm a Jesus follower and people can't help but see it. Right? I love what, I'm going to be in the Sermon on the Mount during this time, Matthew 5, 6, and 7. And please understand, there is no way that I'll get to the depth of it or explain all of it, so you need to read it yourself. In fact, if you don't have a reading assignment, here it is. Read Matthew 5, 6, and 7. Sometimes, I'll tell you the way it works for me. Sometimes I'll read it in 3 or 4 versions. And it's like, oh, the Amplified. In fact, read the Amplified. It'll take you a little bit longer. But the Amplified, it says this about that. And then that drives me into a study. Or the New Living Translation states it this way. I love what Franklin Roosevelt said about the Sermon on the Mount. He said, I doubt there's any problem in the world today, social, political, or economic, that would not find a happy solution if approached in the spirit of the Sermon on the Mount. Non-Christians have commented. Mahatma Gandhi said this about, he said, if he were evaluated only on his views of the Sermon on the Mount, he would not hesitate to say, oh yes, I'm a Christian. It's so beautiful what Jesus says. In fact, it's the pinnacle of sermonic delivery. There's no other sermon, no other message ever been given that competes with this. Jesus lays out this manifesto of what we should look like as believers, as Jesus followers. He makes it plain and clear. And yet for some, they think, well, it's only aspirational. We'll never attain that. And yet Jesus said it so that we could get there. In fact, the epistles that you read by Paul and by Peter and James and John are all helping us to get to this place. In fact, I encourage you, if you're going to read in the Bible, read the letters. The letters are for believers to grow and become strong. And so I'm going to read to you today Matthew 5. I'll pick it up in verse 1, 10 verses. And seeing the multitudes, the crowds, Jesus went up on a mountain, and when he was seated, everybody say seated. So I might sit down a little bit because I got some biblical context to do it right. His disciples came to him. You imagine they're all gathered around. And then he opened his mouth. And by the way, there's never anybody, they looked at Jesus, there's never anyone taught with such authority as Jesus. He opened his mouth and taught them, saying, blessed are the poor in spirit. For many of you, this is very familiar. For others, it's maybe first time. That's okay. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Verse 7. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. There's a lot there. And it's called the Beatitudes. In fact, Warren Wiersbe said this, it's the be-attitude. Right? It's the attitude of being in him. If I'm in him, I have a different life. A.M. Hunter, the great New Testament scholar, said the Beatitudes of Jesus describe the character of the men who, living under God's authority, living under God's fatherly rule, made manifest in Jesus, enjoy happiness even here and now, though its perfection belongs to the heavenly world. See, when he says blessed, the Greek word there is that word, would be a word happy. And some of your Bibles may even say happy. And not happy in some trivial way, but happiness that's a fulfillment in our life. And he said, so there's blessing, there's happiness in these places. And I'm just going to spend some time on these first three. I'll give them to you. You can go read and study more this week. And then we'll hit another three that we'll spend some time on. But first of all, he said, blessed is poor in spirit. And I've heard guys try to preach a message about things and prosperity and gaining things. That's not what he's talking about at all. He's talking about spiritual poverty. That we are broke morally, we are broke spiritually, that we're disconnected from God, and because of that, we need him. It's understanding that I can't make it in this life without Jesus in my life. And Jesus is the only way that I can experience the wealth of spirituality that is mine. It's through Christ. Right? I'll remain spiritually poor without him. In fact, they said this, you've heard this no doubt, but that all of us have this God-shaped, God-sized hole in our heart, and he's the only one can fill it. He's the piece of the puzzle that we're missing. See, without him, we're empty, we're void, we are poor. But with him, our life has changed. And then he deals with this idea that blessed are they that mourn. And you could think that he's talking about people that are sad. And yes, but we're all sad at times, right? First service, I gave him a prophetic word. I said, if you've never been sad, you'll be sad sometime. Mark it down. Come back. Let me know when it comes to pass. Really, that's okay. You don't have to tell me. Just be sad and get better. Because none of us sign up. If we passed around a clipboard and said, everybody wants to be sad, go ahead and sign up so you can get your sadness this week. Nobody's signing up for that. You hear me? But he's not talking about just sadness. Because that'd be easy, sadness, and you get this. No. He's talking about people that understand their lostness, their depravity, their distance from God, and they are mourning over that. They are grieved because of the disconnect they have with God. And then he said, blessed. Right? Blessed are those poor of spirit, blessed are those that mourn, and blessed are the meek. Now, my easy go-to with meekness is, somebody that's quiet, humble, they kind of just back out of the way, and you can make it that for sure. That Greek word that's used for meek, in interpreting the Bible in its original language, there's several ways that you come together to do it. One of the things that you do is you go back to look to see how was this Greek word used before it was put in the Bible. Because there's not a Greek word in the New Testament that wasn't used in the Greek. They didn't come up with new words for the New Testament. You got me? So this Greek word used for meekness in the Greek, what it was referring to, 3 different things. I won't hit all of them today. But one of them was a domesticated animal. So, you have cattle or you have a dog and it's domesticated, right? It lives in your house. Not the cattle maybe, but you understand what I'm saying. Not a wild animal. In fact, I watched this, I've caught it a couple times, this YouTube video. And this guy, he has a coyote as a pet. And it's a little crazy to me because the thing barks at him. It's like it's going to tear him up. And he's like, come here. I'm like, what? Get away from me. I don't want you to be my pet. Or I've seen somebody, they had one of these cats, I don't know what they're called, but people have them and they're bigger than normal. But anyways, when you get closer to the thing, you're like, I'm like, yeah, you're going to stay in my house. I don't even going to have a house cat. That kind of threatens me a little bit. I'm just going, but I'm just saying this, that the wild in them is not happy being domesticated. The wild, the freedom, the hunger for freedom is not okay being put a collar around your neck and meant to live in my house and do what I say. And Jesus said, blessed is the meek. Because the enemy would like for you to live a life that's domesticated. That you're chained up and tied up and fenced in. But you were created for freedom. You weren't created to be domesticated by the enemy that wants to steal, kill, and destroy. But you were created so you could experience life, an abundant life, life to the max, life to the full. And that means this, that Jesus desires freedom for you. That's why he came. That's why we celebrated last Sunday. And he's saying this, that when you are spiritually poor, when you're mourning over your lostness, when your meekness makes you feel trapped in a place and not experience freedom, there's hope for you. Because in verse number 6, it's a turning point. Verse number 6, it seems to me everything shifts. Because there's a promise here. It says, blessed are they that hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. If you can get a picture of this, those verse 3, 4, and 5 is your life. You're a BC life before Jesus. You are lost and undone without God and the Son. And then there's a turning point when you get a pursuit and a hunger and a thirst for righteousness, and you get filled and your life is forever changed. That the BC life is over and done with, and there's a post-Christian life because of my encounter with Jesus. Changed my life altogether. I'm not the same person I used to be. Anybody got that testimony? Sometimes I hear people's testimony. They'll tell me, I did this when I was in the world. And I'm like, really? I look at you and you're so good and God's doing so many good things. I can't imagine that was ever you. You're kidding me, right? There's no way. You don't have to prove it to me. I believe it. But I'm just saying, it's the change. Maybe your experience, if you've heard testimonies of people that God has miraculously, supernaturally changed your life. And then Jesus gives us this turning point. I'm going to sit down like Jesus for a minute. He gives this turning point in verse number 6. And then the next 3 Beatitudes I'm going to deal with, it seems as though to me, at least according to Jesus, that the man who tastes of God's righteousness is to show mercy to others, to be pure in heart, and he's to be a peacemaker. That the life that we now live is drastically different than what the life was before, because now we're going to show mercy to others, have a pure heart, and live life as a peacemaker. And so I want to dig down into those for a few moments. If you're taking notes, I'll give you points to write down. If you're not, you just shout with me, okay? Because the first place is Jesus said that our life will be different as we'll show mercy to others. Ephesians 4:31-32 says this, get rid of all bitterness. I told you epistles help us to get there. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. Get rid of those. Instead, everybody say instead. Shout instead. Instead, be kind to each other. Tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you. It's this idea that because I've received mercy, maybe you don't know mercy's for you right now, but I've received mercy. Anybody receive the mercy of God? Right? The mercy of God has come into my life. And because of that, I'm called then to extend mercy to others in my life. You see, when I was out here running with the devil, I was on a treadmill the other day. They play this 80s music. I know what they do because people are old in there. They're playing this 80s music. I had nothing to do with it. They're just playing it, you know. And all of a sudden, Van Halen's song, I think it's Van Halen if I remember correctly, Running with the Devil came on. And there's this lady over next to me. I don't know her name. I never spoke to her. I looked over at her because she's been singing all these songs, you know, like 80 songs. And I looked over at her. I said, I ain't singing that song. She said, me neither. I just understand this. When we were there, we didn't necessarily have to show mercy to others. May not even thought about it. May have been in it to win it, you know what I mean? But then Jesus comes in our life. And we understand we receive so much mercy. And you know what mercy is. Mercy is different than grace. Grace, you can't do anything to get it. God's unmerited favor. The acronym I love is God's riches at Christ's expense. That grace is available. We sing songs, Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound, right? Mercy is a little different. Mercy, you don't deserve it. We had a speaker here a few years ago. His name was Matt Alston. Younger guy. I think he was late 20s, early 30s. And he told about when he was away from God, doing his own thing. He was doing some illegal street racing. And he was in a race with another guy. I can't remember how it happened now, but the other guy's car ended up flipping over and he died. And then when the police got there, because he was involved in the race, he was arrested. And I can't remember how the cars, I don't know, collided, I don't know, but went to jail, and the sentence is going to be pretty heavy. By the way, he did wrong. He deserved a penalty. You know, in America, we're a justice society. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Like, in America, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, but if you're guilty, they're going to give you a crime that fits the penalty. But in Matt's case, he was found guilty, but the family of the young man that had got killed, said, we don't want to see him spend the rest of his life in jail. We don't want to see him have to go through this. So we're asking you, Judge, can you make him go through training and why this is wrong? And then he'll have to go to schools and speak about what he did and share with them why it was wrong, but not go to jail. Not serve out that's mercy. Because Matt deserved. The penalty was you're going to have jail time and you're going to have probably probation after that or whatever it would be. And yet the family said, we don't want to see him go. We extend mercy. You're not going to get what you deserve. And what God says is what he knows, what we understand. We're guilty. We've sinned. We've fallen short of the glory of God. There's none of us righteous, no, not one. And God says, but wait a minute. I'm going to extend mercy, and that mercy is going to look like my son Jesus. It's going to look like him being born, living, dying, and raising again, and he's seated at my right hand right now. So it's understanding that mercy's been provided for us And so now I've got to provide mercy for others. It should be the outflow of the life that I have in Jesus. So we've got to understand this. First of all, mercy is not fairness. It's not getting what you deserve. Mercy is the opposite of justice. We don't get what we deserve. Mercy requires compassion. It's an action. It's not a passive emotion. Mercy moves me to do something that is different than what the expectation is. And mercy's from God. I think it's important to understand that mercy, when we extend it in life, it's a reflection of the character of God in our life. Right? It's not my flesh. My flesh has its way, it's pretty stingy. You know, you ladies ever sit down with maybe your husband and you're having a meal. You're like, hey, you want to share? No, we don't want to share. You get a bunch of ladies together, they're sharing fries. And I'm going, well, I'll just keep my fries. Because in our flesh, we just want to hold tight to everything. We don't extend it in mercy. Why would I do that? See, mercy is a reflection of the character of God in you, that you desire to do that you want to provide that. Secondly, he says this, right? Merciful is going to be blessed. Blessed are the pure in heart. Now, for anybody to say we have a pure heart sounds a little, because there's stuff gets in our heart. How many know that? That's why the Bible says in I think it's Proverbs 4:23, guard your heart above all else, for everything you do flows out of it. All the issues of life flow out of it. 1 John 3:5, the New American Standard, says, and everyone who has this hope fixed on him purifies himself just as he is pure. That pure heart happens when I've focused my attention on him. Undivided heart. Undivided heart. Here's what the Bible says in James 3. It says a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. If my heart's not fixed on Jesus, there'll be something else that gets my attention. If he's not the sole focus of my life, if I don't have him at the pinnacle, at the very climactic point of my life, if he's not there, then something else is going to take that place. People talk about priorities. You got to get this and this. I'm like, wait a minute. My priority is Jesus. The other stuff will come in, right? Right, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and what will happen? All these other things will be added. Right? Soren Kierkegaard said, purity of heart is to will one thing, not multiple, not to let my heart be distracted. And when that happens, a pure heart, well, it changes our life, changes your marriage, changes your parenting, changes ministry. That's why Jesus said in Matthew 22, what's the greatest commandment? They asked him, the lawmaker asked him. He said, well, the greatest is love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength. Get God first. Now, some people get this mixed up and say, well, then he said the other one. He did. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love people as yourself. He wasn't saying that they're on equal par, that they're the same as one another. He's saying this, that there's another one that's going to flow out of your love for God. I would challenge you today that if you don't have a love for God as the priority of your life, you'll have a struggle loving people. You won't ever love people like you need to if you don't love God first. In fact, I believe this, that our love for people is when we get so much of a love for God that it spills out onto them. Because to be honest with you, there's some people in your life that's probably unlovable. Somebody might think about you too. But because of my relationship with Jesus, it causes me to love people that seem unlovable. It causes me to go to places with people because of the heart that he puts in us. right? And when that's there, well, that changes everything. And lastly, he said, blessed are the peacemakers. Now, it'd be a funny thing if he said, blessed are those that are at peace, because we could just say, we could just sit down and say, kumbaya, I'm at peace, put some soft music on, rest. Because if we're not careful, we think that's what Jesus is saying. He wasn't saying that at all. In fact, it's a fallacy to think that because you're calm and nothing's moving happen in your life, that's even peace. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. You can have peace in the middle of conflict. But I'll tell you this, peace is the opposite of chaos. And I'll be honest, we know how to deal with chaos. All of us in here, sometime, maybe right now, are dealing with chaos or turmoil, and it's rough, and we don't want it. I mean, I know how to get chaotic. My grandkids come over. It's like, yeah, we're going crazy, man. We're having a blast. And then I say, okay, see you later. And I don't know if they unwind or they stay there when they get home. I don't know, but I know we had a blast. It was kind of chaotic. But that's not where we want to live life. And he says, this blessed is a peacemaker. And I think many times it's understanding that is not aspirational. It's where we need to live at. I think about Jesus in John 17. If you haven't read John 17, I encourage you. It's really the Lord's Prayer. I know we'll read in Matthew 6 about the Lord's Prayer in this series, but that's the believer's prayer, right? We learn how to pray. This is the way we should pray, right? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Right? Kingdom come, will be done. That's for us to learn to pray. And in John 17, it's the Lord. Some have said the priestly prayer of Jesus in John 17. And Jesus, when he's praying, he prays about how that we should figure that whole predestination versus free moral agency thing. God, let him know how that works. No, he doesn't do that. Lord, let him know, help him understand the idea of eternal security and the slippery slope of backsliding. Help him to understand that, how it works. He didn't pray that. He didn't pray, let him know how the Holy Spirit, what he does, and manifestations. He didn't pray that. The one thing he prays for is he prays for unity. That he's headed to give his life as a sacrificial lamb. And the one thing he stops to pray about, to ask his Father about, Lord, make them one, even as we are one. Unity, God. And so I'm praying. Father, I'm praying for unity in believers. Because he understood the importance of experience peace. And God calls us to be peacemakers. I like to think about it like this. I've said this for so many years, I can't remember exactly where I got it from. So now it's just mine. As I've said before, all of us carry a bucket of gasoline and a bucket of water. Depends on you. Do you want to be a gasoline person or do you want to be a water person? Gasoline sounds like fun. Gasoline is like this. Situation happens in your life. Gasoline is, I throw that on it, and I just inflame it and make it bigger. Somebody's complaining, somebody's upset, something's going on. Sometimes I get a call from, over years, family. Hey, somebody in our family did this. It won't be like this, but let's go get them. I'm like, no, let's not go get them. I put the gasoline back here. There's going to be something good I need to inflame at some point. We get the water out. Let's put this out. Let's put it out. Peacemaker understands there's going to be a chaotic moments. There's going to be stuff that happens in life. How am I going to respond? Because responding is different than reacting. If you go to the doctor and they give you some medicine and you have a reaction, that's a bad deal. But the doctor said, how are you responding? And you say, good. It's a different place. How are you going to respond to situations in your life? I love what Eugene Peterson does in a message in James chapter 3. You can read it in any version. Read the entire chapter. It would help you. But in verse 5 and 6, he says, it only takes a spark. Remember, it only takes a spark to set off a forest fire. A careless or wrongly placed word out of your mouth can do that. By our speech, we can ruin the world, turn harmony to chaos, throw mud on a reputation, send the whole world up in smoke, and go up in smoke with it, smoke right from the pit of hell. In verse 17, he said, real wisdom, God's wisdom, begins with a holy life and is characterized by getting along with others. It is gentle and reasonable, overflowing with mercy and blessings, not hot one day and cold the next, not two-faced. You can develop a healthy, robust community that lives right with God and enjoy its results only if you do the hard work of getting along with each other, treating each other with dignity and honor. I think that's powerful. Ephesians 4:3 said, make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. Right? I said earlier, peace isn't just the absence of conflict. The Hebrew word for peace is shalom. And that's exactly what it is. Nothing missing, nothing lacking. I like to think about it like this. It's when everything's in its place. You ever get done with a big project? Maybe somebody's been cleaning your house or your garage, and you get everything where it needs to be. It's like, you completed that exam. It was so hard working toward, and now it's like, oh, I can breathe. The other day, Antonio over here, he's a master at this. He came out and he did the mulch in our yard. I've done it. I never liked to do it, and I wasn't very good at it. If you don't like something, sometimes you're not very good at it, you know. And Kim didn't think I should do it this year. So Antonio made it look so good. And this morning I walked out there, and I just had a few minutes out in the yard before I came here. I turned around, looked at it, I thought, it just feels like peace. Because everything's in order. Everything looks right. You see, that's what happens in your life, right? When you help somebody else get things in order. Because understand, we're not competing or completing one another.